Hi, how you doing and welcome back to another video on the channel. What we have for you today is our wildcard video going into Game Week 20. It is your final chance. If you've not used your wildcard already, you have to use it by this game week or you're going to lose it. So hopefully this video will help you out with your transfer decisions as well if you've already used your wildcard. It is also 100% rated team on Fantasy Football Hub. Shout out to them for their team rater tool. So, it is a good team. If you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. The support has been incredible recently, so if you can help with that, it's always appreciated. So let's take a look at my team, and we're going to start in goal. And I've decided to go with a Man United goalkeeper, but not the one that they've got already, Onana. We've gone with Alte here. Man United have Forest, Spurs, Wolves, West Ham, Villa, Luton and Fulham in the next 7. Those fixtures look pretty good, and Alte is likely to come in when Onana goes on international duty, and he's only 4 mil. So whilst funds might not be an immediate issue, I think if you want Salah and Son back eventually, you only really want them a couple of moves away. So tying up a lot of value in your goalkeepers doesn't make too much sense. Turner looks like he's starting for Forest, and if they keep the form up, the fixtures after Game Week 25, when Alte might lose his place to Onana again, those fixtures look really good. So he's someone who's super cheap that you can just bring back in when Alte sort of drops out of the team. And we've already said it before, like goalkeepers, they don't have a super high ceiling. A lot of them most weeks are getting 1 or 2, maybe 3 points. So you don't want to tie up too much funds in your keepers. Given that there's a little bit of extra cash to spread around though, there's no harm in getting in slightly higher priced player or two, especially if it guarantees minutes, and Saliba's one of them. Arsenal are one of the teams who lose the fewest players to the Africa Cup of Nations or the Asian Cup, so they should maintain consistent performances. Also brought in Saka here. Now, whilst he hasn't been his usual consistent self, in real time, it's only been a week worth of bad form, as opposed to 3 full game weeks, which can sometimes be a month in real time elsewhere in the season. So the busy Christmas schedule means that if a player has a blank 2 or 3 games, it looks really bad on paper, but in real time it's maybe just a slump for like a week. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to it. I think given the amount of sort of big name players that are missing for the next few weeks, I think Saka is someone you can afford that extra premium on, and he is someone that has proved to be consistent time and time again. So now that Palmer's suspension's over, he once again becomes a great option, especially at that price. I think Chelsea as well as Arsenal don't lose too many players to international competitions, so it shouldn't affect their team dynamic too much, especially with their fixtures being Fulham, Luton, Wolves and Palace during that time. Now, we've talked about how Son's going to the Asia Cup, but Spurs still appear a reasonable option in my opinion, given that they always play the same way no matter what. So I think they'll still get chances from a creative point of view. Bournemouth, Brentford, Everton and Wolves in the next 6 look great. And I think with a lot of players missing, especially in midfield, I think Bowen is a must-have. He's on form and playing up front for West Ham, who have Brighton, Sheffield and Bournemouth in the next 3 games. They're teams you wouldn't associate with keeping clean sheets and solid defences. So I think Bowen, to complement someone like Richarlison and Palmer, is a fantastic combination in the midfield. I think with Richarlison as well, you could go to Kulusevski, but Kulusevski's more of the safe option. Richarlison seems to be more on form and he's a bit more hit and miss, but I think for this sort of team where a lot of fantasy league managers are losing a lot of consistent points in players like Son and Salah, I think he is someone with massive upside that could really benefit your team. So even though they've had a bit of a blip the last couple of games, Villa still remain a good option, especially given their upcoming fixtures of Burnley, Everton, Sheffield and Fulham in the next 6. I think defensively they look a little bit tired, and attacking wise they're still scoring goals though. So I think good fixtures create good form. You would like to think that Aston Villa, they're kind of like a top 6 team in the league, so they are consistently good. And the players that they've got are also quite highly owned, so I think there is safety in numbers, given that someone like Watkins' ownership could go up even higher now with the extra transfer funds that players have knocking around in their fantasy league teams. So for me, Solanke is the in-form striker right now. You can always swap him for a cheaper option when Haaland is back, but in the meantime, I think he's someone that you would absolutely, if you're wildcarding, just get him in. Like, I know he's gone up in price, but Bournemouth are also playing really well and seem to be fixture-proof against other teams. Solanke is someone who is consistently scoring points. I would say he's always good for a goal or an assist, maybe even both. He scored a hat-trick a couple of game weeks ago. So I think, form beats fixtures anyway, and if you've got a player that's so obvious at such a good price, if you're wildcarding, I don't see a reason not to get him in. Now, not many people are actually talking about Man City, but I think they're really going to come back like a machine from the World Club competition. Sheffield United, a tired Newcastle, Burnley, Brentford and Everton in the next 5. I think the lack of high-end players, you could afford to put in Haaland on your bench and just save yourself a transfer, because you're going to want him back in when he's fit. We've not really heard too much information, but hopefully it's not going to be long-term. I think if it works out that it is long-term, then you can just transfer him out again. But if you know you're going to want him back in, I think there's not really loads of expensive options that you're going to want in your team other than, some of the players we've talked about. And I think you can get him in and just stash him on your bench in the meantime. Foden's minutes are super consistent, and I think he's someone that we've shown this season is going to be a part of Man City's attack. I think the fixtures for Man City look great, and I would just get ahead of the curve on this and get in a couple of attackers if you can. So my final player is Trusty. Now, he is just someone who's cheap. He's going to be my third player on the bench. I'm not expecting Sheffield United to get loads of clean sheets, but he is someone, you're not going to need your third bench player, and he's someone that saves you transfer funds elsewhere, because if you are going to want Salah or Son back in your team, you're going to want them within 2 transfers, so you don't want to tie up too much money on your bench. So like we said at the start, when we put this team into Fantasy Football Hub, shout out to them, came out with a 100% rating, and it's pretty hard to do better than a 100% rating in your team. So that really surprised me a little bit, because we've kind of, gone super cheap on the keepers, and, there's a couple of players in there that are maybe not as proven, or maybe look a little bit sort of, inconsistent, Chelsea players, but that's what it is, and I think it's a solid team on paper. The value is still only 98.9 million, so if you did want to upgrade a couple of players here and there, you could still do that. We are recording this video just as Wednesday's games they haven't kicked off yet, so obviously there might be a bit of changes needed, but we will put any alternatives in the comments if any players get injured in the meantime. So for me, the strengths of this team is that there's a deep bench. I think, given if Haaland's fit, I think you're always going to have 2 players on your bench that you're more than happy going to come into your team. And there are players from consistent teams as well. Apart from Chelsea, you would say that lots of players on that pitch, on the screen there, are from teams that are either on form or are consistently at the top end of the table. Now, one potential weakness is that there's no Liverpool, and my main thinking for that is that, Salah's going to international competition, he's going to Africa Cup of Nations, and he's such a big part of how that team plays, especially down the right side. So that's why I've stayed away from players like Trent as well, because I just think he impacts the game so much, does Salah. People kind of think that they're just going to replace him like for like, and whoever plays in that position is going to do exactly the same thing. And Liverpool might be all right, but it's not something that I'm going to want to gamble on straight away. I'll maybe look 1 or 2 games at the team, how they're doing in the meantime when Salah's gone, and then make judgments from there, but I wouldn't be dead set on getting in Liverpool players. And it does also create some selection headaches, and you do kind of need to think about your managerial sort of approach to your team on who's going to be getting into your team and how well they're going to do. And sometimes that works out, sometimes you miss out because you make the wrong decision in hindsight, but you've got to trust yourselves. So yeah, that's the team. Hopefully it's helped you out with your team as well. Good luck in this hectic Christmas schedule in Fantasy League. Hopefully your team's doing all right through the time. If you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.